I want to say hello, everybody, and welcome to, I think, what you're going to find an incredibly fascinating program with the guest as Dee Merz, who I met at the Monroe Institute for the first time during the Lifeline program, which is about soul retrieval to help people who've gotten stuck to get to the afterlife. And then again in May for a discovery program, which is the program where we mind mirror monitors go and place the full hookup on 16 people, 4 people per monitor, and monitor their brainwaves while they're doing consciousness expanding meditations that have gamma beats interspersed. Remote viewing, out of body travel, all these things are part of this program, and we are having the incredible benefit of being able to monitor them and see what the brain waves of these incredibly expanded states of consciousness look like. It was so cool to watch Dee, I got to tell you, and you're going to get to watch too. I'm going to show you her brainwave patterns on 3 meditations. She had amazing experiences throughout the week, but we'll focus on 3 that show you some really cool and interesting events in her brainwaves as she was experiencing extraordinary events in consciousness. So, Dee, I suppose by now everybody has read, since we have quite a few lovely people joining us here today, has read your bio. But let me just say, as an overview for those who might not remember, is that Dee, and I'll start asking her about this right away, has had some amazing experiences, unusual paranormal psychic experiences since childhood, and in particular an out-of-body experience at age 22 that I'll ask you to talk about in length, because that was some ride. And then joining up with, the name of it is the Institute for, tell me again.
Oh, the IONS, the Institute of Noetic Study.
I was thinking more about the ones you studied with for
Oh, the
medical
Academy of
intuition.
Intuition Medicine.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then teaching there for 15 years and participating, as we just mentioned, in an Institute of Noetic Sciences study. So she's had phenomenal experiences. And without my saying another word, I'll just ask you to tell us first about what happened in childhood.
I kind of remember being a bit of a loner when I was really little. And one of the lucky things, and I do believe that we actually set up who our parents are and what our life is going to be like and where are we going to be located. And I was in a very rural area, had a lot of nature, kind of a valley tucked amongst mountains, was able to have a lot of animals in my life, which was really healing for me. And I just kind of remember being like in Wonderland. I was a daydreamer, so I was always getting in trouble. We know how that is, and not paying attention. And I just remember when I was real little that I was lonely. I felt a lot of loneliness when I was a little kid. And you would think, even though you have great parents and you're living in this really pretty place, there was something in my heart that felt like it was missing. And um, I was one of those kids where I would just kind of go to bed and it was really hard for me to sleep. I was always super energized and I just didn't want to miss a beat of life at all. But the one thing that really stands out for me, and I was the third child in the family, and the last one also. So we had a great little family life there. But one of the things, and it happened always around that sleeping time and feeling kind of lonely, like I'm missing something here, was that, and the difficulty of sleeping. I used to reach my hands up and I felt these big hands come through the ceiling. And I knew that that comfortable energy was, all I knew was that it was light. I thought it was very comforting. and I was to put my hands in those hands. And I would do that at night. And that is the last thing that I remember always, like putting my hands really high up there and having my hands be enveloped by other hands. And so there was a connection there, but of course I wouldn't know what that connection was. And I didn't tell anybody what that connection was. It was just my little thing. And then also going along with the fact that I didn't really like sleeping, I felt like I was missing something. I figured out, I remember I wanted to go outside. So I would lay in my bed and I would think about how to get through the wall. And it would take a couple of times before I could get through the wall. But I did get through the wall, which was amazing. Of course, I didn't know how I was getting through the wall, but I do remember getting onto the porch and then getting onto like a adobe boundary that my dad had, 4 or 5 adobes. They were great big brick type things, and getting up on that and just jumping and jumping and jumping until finally I took flight, and then flying around my whole yard and looking at the trees, and that was just one of those experiences. But as soon as I thought of my body, I was in my body faster than I could ever imagine. And it kind of scared me when I was little, so I only did it a couple of times, but who knew what that was called then? I certainly didn't. And, my school experience was pretty much, I was enthusiastic about, meeting other people and being in a relationship, love being with other people. But, I would always run toward the window. And as soon as I saw the outdoors and looked around outdoors, I didn't really want to be in the classroom anymore. And so I was one of those daydreamers. And the teacher caught on to that really, really quick. Great teacher, said, no, she can't be by the window. We're not going to put her by the window anymore. So I went into the inside area. But I can remember also as a child forming patterns in my life. Like, here we are in kindergarten and we're finger painting. And maybe somebody would say, oh, that's really ugly. And me thinking, that's really ugly. I started forming some of these behaviors and taking on other people's energy without even knowing what I was doing. But I, criticized myself for other people thinking whatever they were thinking. And, somehow through the grace of God, I made it through school. And I was in a public school, went on to Catholic school, which had a lot more rules and regulations and rulers. If you did something wrong,
literally whack you on the wrist.
The people that I would play with in the neighborhood, we were building wooden go-karts and going down hills and playing, and those were the guys. And then you go to school and you can't talk to them. You get in trouble. So that was really difficult for me. By then, if you couldn't talk to the guys, by the time I got to high school, I didn't even know how to talk to the opposite sex. That was like really foreign to me. So I basically made it through school, did okay, with grades, etc. But my skills as far as communication were, again, a solitary person hanging out maybe with one person or not. Finally, when I graduated from high school, I went to a junior college and took a writing course. That writing course in journaling, I was astounded by what came out of me. Poetry, music, my feelings, all of those were coming out, which led me up to the fact I finally was able to put the question together, what is love? I am so confused by relationships. One day I was taking an afternoon nap in one of the bedrooms at my parents' house. My mom was in the other room. She was going to rest for a little while too. And so that thought about, I am so confused about this love. I don't understand this. And this is my lonely place. And so as I was lying down, a mandala ended up coming up, it was dark and it was brown and it had all these symbols on it, was in my ceiling. And I must have been in that lucid state because I wasn't asking myself too many questions other than, it showed up. But then a piece of it came out, and it was like the shape of an isosceles. And that started spinning really fast. And that created something that drew me up into following whatever it was. It took me out of my body, no question. And I remember going through these different environments. I was trying to pay attention to where I was. I went through this really thick kind of environment. It was really noisy. There, I could hear a lot of people talking, and I didn't like it. I mean, it was not the place I felt like hanging out. And as soon as I made that recognition that this is not a place I like, I went up to another space, and that space was really serene and really quiet. And I just remember there was this enveloping, super deep blue energy that was in that space. And I really liked that space. But something inside of me, questioned, where am I? And when I asked that question, I heard a voice tell me, you already know where you are. And as I looked to the left and the right, it was as though I was looking in infinity, and that from the beginning of time to the end of the time, which had no beginning and had no end. And when I was there, all of a sudden it shot me up. I was just flying, just consciousness. Now I know my awareness was flying up and going into another environment. And I remember seeing this really soft, kind of hazy white or pink, white and pink light. And that was drawing me in. And as soon as I drew into that, all of a sudden, a long like opening, as if like a place that that you're going to ascend and go forward. And the interesting thing about that was it was like a magnet, and that it was drawing me. I don't remember moving. I remember flying. I was flying into the light. And the closer that I was getting, my heart was pounding until I could just, I only became a heartbeat. That's all I had. But I came into that awareness, and I was in that same field that I was in when I was a little kid, touching those hands. And the only thing that I could think of was the word God, that I was there again. And it wasn't that there was a physical form, it was only energy. But the energy was so massive and so great and expansive that it still felt enveloping and comfortable, and that's where I actually belong. I can't remember how much time I lost time and awareness there. As I kind of look back after, I knew that there was conversations that were going on. And then all of a sudden I heard I didn't want to go back, right? I'm really happy here. This I know. And that palpable energy was love. I mean, I was there until I completely absorbed and was filled with that feeling of love, that it changed something dramatically inside of me. And then when that moment was, and I remember looking back, having the incidents of being aware of where would I go. I would go back. That's all it took for me to be back in my body. But the interesting thing about coming back in my body was that I heard a loud snap when I came back into the field that I was supposed to come in. I was laying on a bed, and I felt my body slam to the bed. And I knew I heard that sound, but then all of a sudden I heard my mother yell, "What was that noise?" So I thought, oh my God, she heard the same noise I did. And so I went in and I shared with her everything that happened, which of course changed our relationship. And she knew that there was a lot to know, that there was something else going on. But the one thing that it let me know was that I had that inside of me. I may not have known how to use it or how it was going to show up, but that was a part of me now. and that it's made a huge impact on my life. Whereas the more that I understand that feeling and that I'm in that space, I would only hope and wish that everyone else would know that, because knowing our own energy helps us to know that we are connected. And I never understood, of course, this phrase didn't come out until, you know, years later, that we are one. And the more consciousness study that I do, such as going to the Monroe Institute, or the awareness of, coming into my own original essence energy. And that was another remarkable experience that I had at the academy, is when I was led through a meditation and came into my own essence energy. And again, it was like this huge burst of this crystalline energy, and then a color that came along with it. And that definitely reminded me of that same out of body experience. And so that's something that I would never want to forget, because I lead my life by that now. I always remember, to me, it makes my life easier to remember that connection, because I know when I take my last breath, I'm very certain about where I'll be heading out.
Just having been there. And so that color that you saw, was that the color of love? And do you now know what love is? Have your questions about that been answered?
Yeah, I would say that, first of all, love is a very deep compassion and an awareness and a sacred place that we could hold for ourselves and that we could hold for someone else. And that, seeing someone spirit to spirit, I end up, in my profession working, and I'm always working with that same essence of somebody else. I make a connection that way. The one color that came in for me within that crystalline magnitude of energy that burst in front of me was that it reaffirmed for me to know, what kind of signature energy did I also bring in? The color was magenta, and it's always been my favorite color. So we can kind of look at our life and think, oh, how do you like to immerse yourself in color? What have you used for color? What have you used in your home? Or which one are you really directed to be a magnet to? And that one spoke to me. It was rich and it was warm and it was vibrant and it was alive. And that's something that sits inside of me.
That's a really vibrant, high key color.
Yeah.
So, so I remember from our pre-interview that after this out-of-body experience, well, or maybe during it, you asked the question, what am I supposed to do with my life? And what you heard was, whatever you want to do, follow your bliss, basically. And you
Yeah.
became a caterer of weddings, and finding that you were able to um, presciently, not just empathetically, but more precognitively understand what it was that people wanted, and were highly successful in that.
Mhm.
But at some point, and maybe take us to that point, you decided to go to the Academy of Intuitive Medicine,
Mhm.
because all of these things that you've described to us have been a psychic ability to shift out of the five sensory realm into other realms.
Yes.
So it seems like it was kind of inevitable that you would end up uh, going to the academy. But what really precipitated that? What led to it? And then tell us what that was about. My kind of burning question about those 15 years is, what were the extraordinary things that you learned, either about yourself or about how this psychic size stuff works, or even how you see things in people's bodies? I think that would be of tremendous interest to all of us.
Okay. So I'll start with the fact that you asked the question and reminded me of something I told you, which was that I could do anything in my life. So I asked myself, what do you love to do? And I love to cook. I was inspired by my grandmother. I love to bake. And so I decided that I would go into catering. So I did catering for about 3 years. And then I really got to know about the catering and how many, 400 appetizers times that by 3 to 5. It gets really tiring.
Uh,
Lunch and dinner the same day with a couple hundred people, that does too. So one day I had asked one of my really great clients, would you be okay if I hire the caterer? And that opened up another door. Then it opened the door to event planning. And I just, went with whatever that took me for whoever needed what. Okay. They were too busy or they wanted something special and they wanted somebody to come in and do it. But that led to another question again. Well, what do you really love about this? And then I met people. They sort of fell into my pathway. And I needed, first of all, that catering part. I worked for a caterer for a little while. I like to be well informed about what I'm going to do and have a background and do it professionally if I'm going to do it. That's what I did. It led me into planning events. But I decided, and I think this is really synchronistic when I look back, I decided to go into planning weddings. Of course, we know what field that's in. That's in the field of, right? We're
Joy, happy, yeah.
Well, I did that for 16 years. And at that time when I did it, there were hardly any wedding planners. So I got to meet everybody in Napa and Sonoma. That became my place and my location where I was all over the valley in wineries and private properties, etc. But what I noticed, and it took me a couple of years to look at patterns are, to me, patterns and fabric and textures and all that kind of stuff is very meaningful to me. When I looked at all the patterns, I noticed that once I sharpened my skill, somebody could be talking 10 minutes. I ask a couple of questions and I see the whole thing. I know what the outcome is totally going to be. I know what I need to create a certain feeling that this couple wants, or this family wants, or just the bride wants. And so I got really intrigued by that, but I didn't think anything of it, like all the other things. It's just part of my life, and that's who I am. And, I don't really talk about it. But as time went on, then in 2007, I said, it was like that point, you're at a certain age and you get really curious about everything. And then I asked myself, well, how does the mind, body, and spirit, how does that all work? Because I didn't know how to identify the wholeness of this.
Even though
And
you'd felt it, you didn't
I
have
was living
the,
it and
Mhm.
feeling it. I knew, yeah. I mean, all of these things were incidences that were coming together. And at that time, when I asked myself that question, something very significant had also happened to me. I was going to go up to a personal growth seminar in Clear Lake, way up in the mountains. And as I did that, driving up, I had my interview with the founder of the academy, and we had a 5-minute interview. My question was just the question that she wanted to know about, and so from there, it opened up. Okay, I'm going to come. That's all there is. But when I went to this personal growth seminar up in the mountain, there was a lot of meditation, and maybe you've heard of names like Bob Proctor and some of these people that used to be. Oh my gosh, there used to be a great group of people that were around. Some are no longer alive. But when I went up there, a couple of really intriguing, I mean, astounding things happened to me. One, we were in cabins, all of us, and in the middle of the night at about 3:45, I heard a voice, and my cabin's filled with just women, all women. It wasn't their voice. It was like an inner hearing voice. And the inner voice said, "Come outside." And I'm thinking, it's like 3:43 in the morning. I don't even know who I'm talking to, right? It's just a voice. And it's freezing, so I don't want to go out. Well, it got really insistent. So 3 times later, I said, "Okay, I'll come out." So I go out there, and there's just the big sky, and there's these beautiful stars out, and it's so beautiful, but clear as a bell. Three, I heard 3 voices, and each voice was a guide. And those guides gave me a gift. One of them was the gift to see, and the other one was a gift to know. And the other one was this feminine divine energy. And that energy was to open up a whole heartfelt world for me also. And still to this day, I have those guides. I mean, there are no other guides. Those are the guides. I mean, yes, there's guides that will, if I need helpers, they'll come in, etc., like that. But those guides were there. And then a couple of other things happened up there. Um, one of them was that they had some pretty powerful meditations up there, probably some of the most astounding ones that I'd ever gone to. And there'd be like 200 or 300 people there, right? And they were going to do, they invited a group in, and they were going to do fire walking. And I'm like, all I can think about is, how am I going to get out of this? I mean, I don't want to lie because I'm in a situation where you don't really want to lie, but how can I get sick? Like, how am I going to avoid this? Because I don't want to do this thing. I don't even know what this thing is. But somehow they guided us, and there was a mantra that was being sung, and all day long they had this long, like I would say 50 yards, 75 yards of a trench that they dug. And it was burning, and it was big holes in that thing. So we finally get to a part, and we're in a meeting and conferencing and then the meditation. And then we're going to go outside, and I'm like, I can't get out of this. I'm going to have to get in line with everybody. And I didn't want to, but I did. And right up to the last minute, I mean, I'm just like balking, I'm like backpedaling the whole way. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened, but I got into a field of energy. I stepped into the fire, and I just stopped, literally stopped. And then I couldn't even go fast. I was in a different field of energy, and I went slow. And we're talking 3 ditches, as we may know them. I mean, 20 feet. Yeah, at least 20 feet. And I had no feeling whatsoever. And I felt pulled along and just walking consciously, but in a different realm. And then this guy reaches a hand out to get out, and I'm still not rushing. He said, "I've never seen anybody go through like that." And I'm like, I don't even know how I got from point A to point B, but all my senses started clicking in there. The ability to see and sense from others, the ability to go back in time when I'm doing reading and picking up the information of where's the original point of what's happening here, where is that deep source inside. And it comes through images and knowing and sensing. And then, of course, those skills can get developed into the clairs, etc. So when I left there, it was an incredible experience. But then I went to the academy, and the academy helps us to understand about frequencies. So one of the lowest frequencies on our earth plane would be the earth energy at 7.83 hertz, and we can move through these hertz. But what I found out about that was, once you get into that low frequency, your whole body your whole nervous system, your brain clicking into that. I use that to quiet one down so slow that they become in present time. And that's the only time we really actually do heal, is when we're in present time. We can't in the past. Our brain's going a million miles an hour. We're not going to do it in the future. We can heal now for those times, but we have to be in that state in order to heal. And there's so much writing about that. So I learned about different systems while I was there. I learned about my own energy, life force energy, prana, chi, we can call it what it is, original essence energy. And I learned about myself mostly there. I learned about who I was, how I affect other people, where's my place in this world. And once I had graduated, I decided to stay and help other people. So you can be a TA. That's what you can be. And you kind of just move around through that. And I found it an incredible learning experience. It was worthwhile for me to be there. But I always, what really started happening was you're practicing and working with other people. And I knew, here I am, I'm still doing wedding planning. And my guides were very, very insistent about me not, they wanted me to leave that field. And the biggest thing that actually got me out of that field was do you want me, should I keep going? Do we have time?
Yeah. This is fascinating because, I mean, the questions that you had to be asking yourself as you're having this expansion of consciousness had to, at times, border on questions of, have I gone stark staring mad? How, where is this going, and how is it going to change me and change my life? So you're sharing with us these nuances and these thought patterns, I think, is a direct correlation to the development of the brainwaves of consciousness. So please.
Yeah. I never thought of myself as crazy. I thought of myself as being more me, the real me, like just letting go with all these layers on top of me.
Nice.
Because I became happier and quieter and stiller, and everything could be moving around me. And I was okay with that. I'm in the center. I'm in the center of me. I'm like really grounded here. I'm in a sacred space, and then anything can happen.
Beautiful.
So that's pretty where it took me. The big turning point was my field was changing. It was 2008, 2009. And I went up to almost, I'd say about 10 years ago, I did my last anniversary, a 10-year anniversary. But I had this one incident where I had a really difficult client. I'm in a private garden. It's enormously expensive to be there, and you're going to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to have an event there. And that's the place my clients chose. Well, on this particular day that they chose in October, okay, we all know it's going to rain here, something's going to happen. I always suggest the tent. I had the big dinner tent. That was all safe. All the band, all the dancing, all that stuff would take place there, and all the lounging. But the ceremony wasn't, because we were in a very historic French garden. It's really hard to tent. And I really had to do like a lot of my kind of praying that it wasn't going to rain. So we're just about at ceremony time. And I've got a couple of friends that are event planners. Some are in the South in Sonoma. Some are in the North up in Calistoga. They're like freaking out. The wind comes. It's just raining, torrential rains. They're running. Everybody's running, right? But I've got like 250 people that flew in all over the world for this. And I'm thinking, oh, please don't rain, because the mother is a hornet. She is so mean. I don't have those mean people very often. This one was not nice. And so the sky is looking really dark, right? We are just minutes from the processional starting. And all of a sudden, it seems kind of quiet around me. The bar's all set up for cocktails and all that kind of stuff. So all of a sudden, I just run behind the bar, and I'm like, please, 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 please don't rain, please. And then I know what I have to say, because I always have to say it to my guys. I'll do anything you say. I promise. Right. And so I know what they want. They want me done here, right? So I have to make a promise. Okay, I'm going to listen. I tell them, I promise I'm going to listen. So I go back out to the processional. It's time for the mother of the bride to take her place. She's coming up. She is so upset with me. I mean, like, I'm in control of the weather, of course.
Right.
So she goes, what are we going to do? And I go, you're going down the aisle. That's what you're doing. You're going down the aisle. And I can see drip, drip, it's happening. But I'm just going to count on what just happened. So all of a sudden, I get the whole group down. I get the bridesmaids and the groomsmen down. And all of a sudden, here's my bride right in front of me with her dad. And I look at her shoulder, and the sun is shining on her shoulder. And I look at the sky, and it's a great big rectangular garden. And all of a sudden, it's like, how did that clearing happen? Like the clouds cleared in a big oval. And I'm like, oh my God, wow, okay, then I know what's going on, and I'll think about this. So anyway, we get her down the aisle. She gets through ceremony. They get through all the cocktails. It never rained. And I know that for certain, that's my message. And I better pay attention to that message. So it took me a while to unwind myself. But again, as soon as I pulled out and I referred everything out to other people and decided I'm going to get a studio. So I have a girlfriend that says, hey, somebody, has a studio in Sausalito and they want to sub rent it. I said, okay, well, let's take a look, and I'll pick you up on the way down. I knew she was going to back out. Sure enough, I get a call halfway down there. I can't go. So I'm like, oh God, I don't even know this person. Well, anyway, I go to this place, and it looks like a little beach shack, but it's really cool. There's Mount Ham, there's all the boats, there's the beach, there's everything there, right? I sit down, all of a sudden, I get this sense of like, I'm going to say something. And then all of a sudden I say, I'll take it. I know that my guides are like right there with me, and they're like, they want me to have it, right? So I get the place, and I'm literally driving away thinking, okay, well, let's just times the rent by 12, and I'll see how much money I have to lose if I don't have any clients. I mean, I wasn't certain what was going to happen here, and how much was I willing to lose, right? But as soon as I put energy in that place and I made it mine, it was like
A beacon. It was a beacon,
came,
wasn't it?
right?
Yeah.
And it turned out that she didn't want to sub rent. She just, turned it over to me. And the interesting thing is that, well, I'm still there, of course, and I will be, but the people came the same way they did from weddings, word of mouth. It wasn't that, the academy doesn't give referrals out. Of course, a student might want to come to you, that happens. But really, they're independent people coming from all different sources. And so that's the majority of my work, is from outsourcing and word of mouth, same as my other business, even though I have my website and do the things that one would need to research, etc. And so, and that's where I am right now, experiencing, being in business on my own and being able to see people in person. Those are always the first that people want. And then I do Zoom and I do phone, and Zoom is, both of those are really equally as effective.
So how does it work? Somebody comes and sits with you, and I know you have a vast array of clients with incredibly different issues.
Yeah.
So how does it work?
Well, first of all, I always have a consultation. And the consultation is important for me because what happens is I begin to get a sense, and I take notes on everything. I begin to get a sense about what's going on with the person. I mean, a lot of times it's kind of like my eyes are like, I watch an eagle, like an eagle. He knows where he's going to go. He knows where the target is of what he wants. Well, I work the same way pretty much. I'm moving down into what's the source, like where did this route? I'm looking for that point within a person of that. And it's built up by many, many layers because I'm dealing with the chakra system. I'm dealing also, I'm perceiving what's going on in the subtle energy field.
Would
And
you like close your eyes, or do you see this with eyes open? Does knowledge come rushing in with eyes open, or do you close your eyes and it boom like a spontaneous vision?
eyes open for all the information.
Hmm.
And once I'm in a meeting with someone, whether I'm on Zoom or on phone or in person, I pretty much do all my work closed eyes. I know where they are, and I'm focusing from that point all the time to get to where I need to go. And so a lot of times that's it. I mean, I'm looking around not only at the person, I'm looking around who else is here. We have other spirits that are going to show up. And so, and sometimes, well, a lot of times they're relatives, or they're relatives or guides, mostly, that are going to show up in that space. And although I don't always talk about that unless someone wants to know about that or they're open for that. So I usually propose it in the way of a question so that they can choose, to accept what may be around them. It all depends on the degree of what a person is going through also. But I'm doing a scan on a person. I always start with a scan, and that came from another lesson that my guides gave me. I had an incident where after I had graduated, I was led to go to the Wind River in Wyoming by myself. So I found a place I could do that, little cabin. And as I was kind of walking around and near the river, etc., I remember finding these, very significantly, two arrowheads for me, obsidian and also like a red one, mahogany. And when I put those two in my hands, my guide showed me a picture of how to work with someone, how to really do a scan, how to map out their field. Even though we got that information at the academy, that's great. But like anything, you want to find your way. What is your very unique way? Because the academy gives you a foundation and a set of tools of a huge array of ways to work. You can work that way, but then we come as whole beings with all these other gifts. And those are our finer points, our distinguishable differences of what is unique about one. And so that's what they were doing. They were telling me how to use my psychometry, which is a great tool to peak your clairvoyance, and how to map the body out, the body, the spirit, the nervous system, etc., all of that. And what am I using? I'm using all the clairs. I just let anything happen that's going to happen. I do when I'm working with a client, I ask them to say their name because I do believe that their name is holding the energy of their energetic body, their spirit's energy. And I need to connect with them spirit to spirit. I'm a spirit, they're a spirit. And so it's really important for me to have that. And when they say their name, then what happens is a blueprint suspends in front of me. And then I begin to hear out of my right ear their own spirit. And their spirit will make comments, tell me things. What's appropriate will happen. There's many layers of people. So I look at it as what's going to happen this time with someone and what information will be coming forth. And then from there, it's my job to use the blueprint to identify. So usually I like working with a diagram, just of an anatomical diagram of the body, so that I can map out what's going on and where it's going on. And then I will review that with the client and see if that resonates with them, and then what other information may come forth. Then, if I'm approaching someone either in person or my other methods, I usually like someone to lie down or at least be really comfortably seated. And then I will take them through a process of opening up the field and creating little drains so that we can get some of this energy off. And usually I'll start with the breath. And then I will really slow down all of their energy by just bringing their awareness to a very quiet place. I like to use imagery. I do a lot of imagery. And there's a special way that it's in the cadence of my voice, something that I acknowledge that happens is that my voice carries a wave. So that wave is a vibration. And that wave is going to be as effective as if I get them to imagine a really peaceful place that they like, where they can disconnect, and I use all their five senses. But at the same time, I'm starting as if I'm have their feet in my hands, either if they're lying down, but even if they're on Zoom, I'm going to put my hands under what I know is to be their feet because I want to open up those feet chakras. We draw in that energy into our body, and then we want to connect that in specific places, and it would be into the chakras. That's what's going to quiet down and bring that wave in. And the wave goes in, it goes into the muscles, it goes into the bones, it goes into the nervous system, and it's going through all the organs and all the systems. What happens is when I'm working, I will know when that heartbeat changes. They don't have to tell me, they don't have to be hooked up to anything. I just know, like my field of energy picks up all the signals that are going on. Heartbeat, brain waves, vagus nerve, all of that stuff. I just know.
Because
Or
there's
I
a change in the field itself. You feel the
big change.
change in their field. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a change in the field. And then, the rest of the process is once I quiet down everything, then I'm going to run something through their whole skeletal system. Copper works good. I use my imagination and run a fluid through them. And that gets rid of like a lot of old energy, and it's like a magnet. It'll just like soothe everything all the way through. And usually people want to fall asleep then. And I decide, well, how deep are they going to go? I mean, now they're in a different place and they describe all kinds of different places to me. But now the next point that I would do is I would activate their life force energy, because that's what we need to renew, because that is the highest healing energy that we have. And I want to see that bathing through the whole system and the chakras and out around the aura, because it's what creates a boundary for one. And then they become much stronger. Then we're not susceptible to what gets through this subtle energy field into our body that's causing harm. And it doesn't mean just physical stuff, it could mean other energy coming in and shifting things around right to the bones. And then there's a lot of other methods that I use. A lot of times people are running some energy that's absolutely not theirs, may not even be in this earthly plane energy. And
Where
I
does it
have
come from? What is it?
to,
Ha 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 ha. I know part of that answer. But go ahead and tell them. Might as well hear the scary.
well, okay. So, well, our first little culprit would be other people's energy. Okay, because we're senders and receivers through our chakra system. So we can't help but taking on other people's energy. We have tools in order to use not to do that. And those tools are very important to learn so you can keep everything at the boundary, and you can have a daily hygiene cleansing on energetics, to be able to do that. Other people's energy is number one. Number two would be when our system gets weak from patterns and behaviors that we've have learned experiences, that we become vulnerable. And there's other energy that is out in our system, and that I would tend to call it a foreign energy. It's not from this world, and I see a lot of that also. And there's a certain way to talk about that energy. It can get into your system, and it can cause havoc inside of us. A lot of people come to me and say, I don't feel right. I don't even feel like me. Um, so those things need to be approached and to be released out of the body. And there needs to be some kind of connection. Whereas you come into communication with that energy, once you come into communication with the energy, then you can address it and release it to go back from where it originated from.
And is it malevolent or is it just chaotic?
Mostly it's chaotic. And yes, there is malevolent energy, and that causes havoc, and that will instill some very bad patterns. Addictions, almost all addictions are
Mm.
coming from outside source of foreign energy, alien type of energy. And it's just we're out of our minds basically, and we have something else that's taking over our body, and we lose our sovereignty for ourselves, and then we just come into this downward spin.
That's kind of scary, but at the same time, it's empowering because people will usually know when they're in a crazed state. If they can know that it's not entirely them and that there is a 0 point field of coherence that they can get to and neutralize that. And
Oh,
it sounds like that's basically what you're doing for people.
right. I mean, even there's other situations when we really care about someone and we've let our feeling or our sense or soaked up through empathy their energy, that it can distort our entire field of energy. It can get in our bones, but there's always a way through. If I can't do it, I will refer it out. I mean, I have a small group of people that I also work with that we kind of share depending on the situation with the person, but it has an influence upon shifting things. I mean, I've seen it in the vertebrae, I've seen it in the muscles, and I've seen it all around the organs, etc., like that. And my field of expansiveness that I work in, and it's come through a lot of practice, more than it's really a state of practice of getting to a certain level of being able to be aware. I mean, some people have spontaneous things, which is really beautiful also. And but the span of where I go is I work with a lot of people that want to get pregnant, and I work with the baby spirits, And if I see that baby spirit and somebody wants to get pregnant, I'm going to let them know immediately that that spirit can be accessed. And I've seen that spirit be accessed and go through the whole, pregnancy and then the birth and then to see that little one afterwards. But it also expands where part of my work after that out of body experience, my first introduction of working with energy was I started with somebody who worked with people who had cancer. And mostly what she saw in me, that's when in this meditation group, we would meditate and she would bring a name in. There was 13 of us together. And then after the meditation, after she gave us a name and we had our own little, whatever we sense to that, we would share. And one of the things that came up for me was I always saw the medical stuff. I'd see the brain cancer, or I would see cancer somewhere else, or I'd see a botched surgery. And then we'd write the notes and we'd give it to her and she'd take it back to the people. But she asked me, would you like to work in a way where you're with people that are in the process of dying? And that was my biggest entering into the field. And I did that in 1979 to 1985. I worked with people, and what I learned then was their experiences that they were going through, what they saw, what I knew they would see, what was going on with them, how soon would it be that they would be departing, who would be on the other side for them. And so really what I did is I actually stepped in a field that made that help with creating some peace so that that process happened where they were more aware of themselves as energy. And I continue to do that.
Which had to be incredibly, not just encouraging, but I guess remove fear. Because if you identified people that they knew were there and you didn't know them before, then they had to know it was real.
Oh yeah, there'd always be a family member coming. Yeah. Yeah, I had an incident with a young man who had non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and I got called in to come and see him. I had never met him before. I just knew the mom, and I get to this house, and you'll have to stop me when you want to stop me. But and really, honestly, this happened just a few years ago. I stepped in. There's 11 people there. I think they're all waiting for him to die, and he's in a hospital bed, and I can hear his voice, his throat, and I can hear his breathing, and it's like I'm working, I sit beside him, I say hello to the whole family. They're all here. I'm like, God, where am I? I haven't done this before, but now I'm going to have to communicate not just with him, I'm going to have to communicate with them because nobody knows what's going on. And sometimes this takes days, right? But then I thought, I don't know, let's just look. So I'm sitting beside him and I'm going telepathic. I mean, honestly, it's like I expect nothing here, but I greet him. He's unconscious. He is a really beautiful 54-year-old man, this mother's son here. And he tells me he wants to get out of the body. So I decide, okay, I can teach you how to get out of your body. And there's a specific way to get out of your body. So I guide him and I'm going to go with him the whole way. So I tell him, we're going to go up on the roof. Okay. We're going to go on your roof. So he's able to, okay, first of all, his breathing is going lower. As soon as I get there, that whole heartbeat and everything is like really settling down. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to read this field and see where the field is and how can I prepare this field for what's going to happen here.
And hang on, let me interrupt you here because I have a burning desire to know. this family, this huge family that's around him, these are living people or departed spirits?
No, they're living.
Okay.
They're
So
brothers and
so you're
sisters.
just quiet while you're doing all this. They see you sitting there quiet and they have no idea what you're doing.
Oh no, I had to tell them all the way.
Okay.
I'm going to talk silently to them.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
I don't know if they know these words or not. I figure this is a new experience and we better make it good for everybody here,
okay.
you know? And I don't know how long I'm going to be here. They don't have any clue what's going to happen. So I'm speaking to him in nonverbal ways, just telepathy, mind. And we get up and we're on the roof. And I'm sitting on the roof. I can sense I'm on this, ceramic roof and there's a big tree there. And he goes, I want to go over here. I go, nope, 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 nope. You're going back in the body. I don't want to get back in the body. I go, you have to go back in the body. This isn't the way it's going to happen. So I get him back in the body. And then he really wants to go. And I go, look, what if we, I'm talking, I go, why don't we just plan your next life? Okay, why don't we just do that? And so I tell the people, I go, well, he wants to get out of his body. I'm going to have to teach him how to get out of his body. But as soon as I say plan your next life, it's like a whiteboard shows up and he puts the top 5 things on it. I'm reading them and I'm telling them that we're in a process now where we're going to plan his next life. And the first thing he said, and boy, I thought I was going to fall down when I heard this. He says, and his mom and dad, and all the relatives there, he wants to be a really good dad. Well, I didn't know something about this, but that statement is the first one I said, and then I went down the list, and I let them all know about this. And then once he had that done, I said, I think we should separate your energy from everybody else's. So I taught him non-verbally how to do that. And then I told them that. And then I said, I just did this with him. Now I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to teach you how to do that with him. Okay? So we can all be sovereign in our own energy. So I went through that group, and there was only one who said to me, are you sure about that? And I'm like, I'm absolutely positive about it, So we get that part done. And then I'm ready to go again. I said, okay, we're going to go out again. And I'm going to be with you when we go out. Okay. So don't be running away. So we get out, we get up on the top of the roof, and then we get into the big tree. And then all of a sudden, he's shooting down this valley. And I know this area. And he gets to this big tree. And I'm like, oh my God. So I look at the family, I go, does he know down that San Geronimo, that big redwood tree that has the big hole in it and you can get in it? That's his favorite place. I go, we're there. So done with them, get back to him. Now he wants to go all over the world, right? He wants to go down to Spain. He wants to go to Taiwan. And so we're doing this little cruise around. I go, okay, it's time. We have to go back. I don't want to go back. We have to go back. We're not done. We have to go back. Get him back in his body again. And then all of a sudden, the breath starts changing. And now it's getting really quiet. So all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God, he's going to go. So from the base of his spine, there's like a whole line about this wide. And I see a burning inferno coming up inside of him. And I'm looking at the pathway. And then I look at the 7th chakra because he's coming out of there. And I see all the scarring. And I'm like, oh my God, do I need to fix the scarring? Will he be able to get out? And then all of a sudden I hear a voice, no, he's okay. I saw all of his energy burn out of his body, right out the top of his head. And then it's like all this gold. Oh, right when he was almost out, like 7 golden beans show up all around us. And I mean, I've got goosebumps all over me. I can't even believe that what's going on. And then the whole ceiling of the room turns into like gold. It's like billions of little gold balls, right? All these parts of him. So I look at the family and they know he went silent. I said, you have work to do right now. All of you need to go into your own private spaces and you need to tell him whatever you want to tell him and to wish him and send that love. Okay. Everybody's going to be sovereign here. So they ended up doing that. And then everything got silent. And then whoosh, he left. And I looked at the clock. It's 45 minutes later from the time that I got there. I don't even know what's going on, right? I know what happened. So, of course, I go out and I talk to the dad on the deck. He goes out first with the dog. There's a dog, and I'm really worried about the dog because the dog knows he left. It was his dog. Dad goes out to dad, and the dad starts crying, and he goes, you read that whiteboard. I've been a really bad dad. And the first thing that the son said is, I want to be a really good dad. So that was really tough for the dad. But I stayed with him for a little while. But that incident, it's just one of those phenomenal incidences that come up, and you just happen to be there. And I don't know, it's another learning experience. That's all I can say about it. That would be life-changing.
It's beautiful. And it does seem that although you have a full toolkit of skills that have developed since childhood, that you really don't know what the heck's going to happen in any given situation, because every given situation is different and you're kind of like carried along. You know what to do as a next step through your guidance to help them. But it's like you're on a little rocket ship ride yourself. That must be pretty darn interesting for you too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, life is a thrill. Once I finally realized in my life, the reason I don't like to go to sleep is I can't wait to see what happens the next day.
Right. Right. Well,
Yeah.
listen, it occurs to me that by now you guys would rather see brainwaves. That's
Oh,
no
yeah, me too.
brainer.
Always the brain waves.
What I did was choose just a few sessions, and really the best way to look at them is here in the Mind Mirror portal, because we can zoom around to the brainwave patterns much easier this way. The first one I wanted to look at, so what's happening, a little bit of context, is that Dee, like all the other participants, 15 other people are laying back in anti-gravity chairs with wearing headphones, and they're listening to these meditations with the gamma beads. Well, Dee showed up with an extremely, as you might imagine, expanded brainwave pattern to start with. From the opening baseline, she was showing these beautiful gamma synchrony patterns of the superconscious mind, where you basically have a grounded, awakened mind underneath. And then on top, you have this big head with a halo. And those are the high frequency gamma waves. And so in the opening baseline, just as a baseline, she was a Bengal tiger cub in Africa. She looked down at her feet, lived with a family, had male parents with siblings. She was happy, carefree as a cub, playful. Her muscled body was very agile, and she felt soft fur and felt that a great flexibility, agility, and bursting with muscle mass energy. And when she manifested her qualities and those qualities and characteristics, she blasted up into this beautiful gamma synchrony pattern, which gave her like a landmark. And a landmark is a word, image, concept, symbol, body sensation that you can recreate in your mind to be able to re-invoke the original brainwaves that you had that image in. And so she actually did that with great ease all week long. And this first one I want to show you, though, is called an exercise called Inner Space. It happened, I think, let me just check. It was the first exercise on Monday morning. We start Sunday mornings. And there was a little tiny bit of, actually too much, 60 hertz noise here, but that doesn't travel down in the low frequencies, and that's what we're interested in here. So in this meditation, she said that it felt like an OBE, like she was out of her body, and that it was a very visceral sensation. And so we're just going to play this. So here's the Mind Mirror live brainwaves, or recording of the live brainwaves. And you can see that she's got an awakened mind here with lots of alpha. And then she starts to develop this huge delta. And delta has been seen when people are about to go out of body or make some kind of out of body contact. And here in the composite display, you can see these big flares of delta that are showing up here in the mind mirror. So just watch these babies. What you're going to see in about a minute is her going out of body. Like her brain waves are starting to retract. Even now, you're going to have some more flares of delta come in a moment. And then she's going to virtually disappear, which is pretty cool stuff to watch, you know, when you're monitoring. You're going, what? Where did they go? And here she's disappearing. Compared to this, when she has all these amplitudes, now compared to this, everything starts going away, even here, more so here. And she identified this as feeling like she was going out of body, and said she was filled with light, felt super peaceful, very expansive, and that it was a slow ride in. And indeed it was. You see all these frequencies up here. But then when she rides in, she totally rides in. Now, of course, we're looking at this. This looks to us like it's only happening over a 2-minute period. But in reality, for her, this is timeless. You can see she's having some gamma arise down here at the bottom. There's a big gamma spurt here. Let's go see. I'm kind of exploring this with you. This big gamma rise down here and these data lines at the bottom. What we'll see is frequencies up here. And there they go. So she's moving into a superconscious state. This is a 100 hertz gamma synchrony pattern. Superconscious is actually a 64 hertz pattern, but Dee has got access to these big high frequencies. And just to stop this and show you this stunning pattern, that's a lot of gamma over, you see, an awakened mind at the bottom. So basically, this is her plugging into the field, and may well be that magenta light, you know, or something that wherever it is that she considers expansive. And then I have another one queued up here. This is metamorphosis. So in this one, she gave us her feedback after the exercise, said that she saw her body blueprint and heart space, saw a lot of blue and green while cruising to the music in which the gamma beats are enmeshed. And she recreated the landmark for her Bengal Tiger Club. Actually, it spontaneously arose. And she got a sense of courage from it, which was a new aha, that earlier courage hadn't necessarily shown up as a dominant trait, but then she realized that, yeah, of course, this is courage. And she said that then the Bengal cub transformed into a full-sized bear with the gift of protectiveness, especially towards children and others on the path. And she felt high frequency gamma as a healing state. So now she's got a landmark for the feeling of high frequency gamma. I mean, it's kind of nice, you know, to have words, to have a brainwave map, because then you know where you are, where you've been, where you want to go. So she got really that landmark, and she said she sat with that for a long time and found super clarity in it. And so what I have dialed up here, there's kind of this is a good place to look at right here. You see, she's got alpha. She's got a lot of theta showing up down here. She's gaining so much voltage that I actually have to back off the pattern so you can see the entirety of it. All right, so she's gone into this high voltage brainwave pattern, and then she goes bye-bye again. I love to say that in this pattern, there's nobody home. So I'm going to increase the microvolt or lower the microvoltage so the pattern gets big enough again for you to watch it. She powers up into this mega gamma. You see this gamma arising here. So much happens in gamma. All right, this is really the frequencies of psi higher up on the. So at this point, right almost here, well, all in this area right here, this is the spontaneous tiger cub becoming the bear. So this is what courage and protectiveness look like for Dee. This big, big gamma here. And you look at the gamma in relation to the other frequencies, you can see by far that's the dominant amplitude up here. And in fact, what we're really looking at here is the top half of an evolved mind pattern, but not the evolved mind pattern that typically happens in lower frequencies, these frequencies, but transferred on up to 100 hertz. And that is the pattern of universal consciousness. Usually when people, well, I don't say usually, maybe 2/3, 3/4 of the time, when people produce this pattern, and I've mostly seen it at Monroe Institute while people are being fed gamma frequencies and having extraordinary experiences, most of the time, people click out. They are so filled with bliss and light and joy and this, that it gives way, suddenly feelings give way to this unity with the healing power of the universe, and they go away. They don't remember it all. Very few people are actually able to stay conscious inside of an experience in this universal consciousness pattern. And so you see, she went out of body, and this is something I saw on the mind mirror 3 years ago, that still rather astonishes me, but is really quite logical if you think about it. So imagine that somebody is here present in the earth plane, although she's present in a very different way with all this theta and delta. I'll back this thing off again so you can see it. See, the theta and delta have taken over her pattern. Now she's back to an awakened mind. But then she starts to disappear. So in the disappearing, what Dee was saying earlier about feeling like she is going deep inside herself, that is exactly what you're seeing here. A retreat inside a part of you that is vibrating with universal energies, which then, unimpeded by the conscious mind's analysis, this alpha's sensory awareness, maybe also even by the essential being, everything goes into retreat in a pattern this small. Then what happens is you're able to receive and process these powered up energies that end up becoming this universal consciousness pattern that either you click out from, or maybe some people do stay with. But that pattern ends up being a carrier, really, for higher energies and higher frequencies. That sort of beacon radiating energy that she's able to use to plug in. So check out this pattern right here. So you see this 6 hertz bar of theta. So that's essential being theta. That's when a person has dropped so far down into the subconscious mind that they're connecting not with the thinking mind, not with the sensory mind, but pure being, right? And this is called an alpha theta crossover. And when it happens, then the person is having a transpersonal experience. And that transpersonal experience can be an identification with an icon, an alien, God, an ascended master, an animal, a spirit animal, anything at all. But this is a major change in the pattern. And when this happens, then pretty soon you're going to see that 100 hertz pattern, which I have totally lost by now. Maybe I can find it again. Let me try. Yeah, I've got a note here. 13 minutes. Then you're going to, after these kinds of frequency projections down in theta or delta, then you're going to start to see this kind of universal consciousness rounding. And so for Dee, this was about a body blueprint, a heart space, the Bengal tiger arising and turning into the bear, and then, most importantly, feeling the gamma healing state that she was in, that you saw. And wow, what a rejuvenator. I mean, how could we ask for more than that? Then the other pattern I want to show you that I think is just the coolest thing happened during fire. So in this meditation, I saw her project that 6 hertz theta band and go out of body again, just drop the amplitude of her pattern to 2 to 3 microvolts compared to 10, 12 microvolts here several times. And I thought, wow, something is really happening here. And afterwards she said, I was filled with light. I went to Atlantis on the day of destruction. I saw myself surfacing in water with a crystal in my hand, very archetypal there. Between the subconscious and the unconscious mind, a spaceship came in. I was in it, and they said that they had information that I was ready to receive, that I came from Orion with other people, and then downloaded light, radiance, iridescence, and body upgraded to receive more. So I wanted to show you this because, you know, you hear things like this when we're on to go, yeah, aliens, sure. And then they tell her I'm coming in between the subconscious and the unconscious mind. And then you see it on the mind mirror and you go, oh, well, okay, so maybe that's really real. You're about to see it. You see this big theta hump right here? Here it goes. There it goes. We'll back off so you can see it better. And in they come, right between the subconscious and the unconscious mind, just like she said. With a significant amount of gamma, true, but this transpersonal theta, they're coming right smack in. Look at this. Theta and delta. And this is the bottom half of an evolved mind pattern too. So when you have this bottom half like this, it means one of two things, which indeed may be the same thing. One is that you are carrying information up from the personal unconscious which is connected to the field. You can see that the amplification of these lower frequencies on up means that the energy and the information are traveling upward. The other thing it can mean is that energy is coming out through the field, up from the field, and moving up so that she's able to understand what's going on. That's why I say I think they're actually the same thing, because the personal unconscious is, according to Dean Radin, always trolling the collective unconscious mind. And then, interestingly, here we're having flares of what I identified and other people have seen as a diamonding, where the top band of theta at 7.5 hertz starts to merge, as it has over here in the left brain, and now it's merging here in the right brain in this diamond shape. And what people invariably say when we see this pattern is that I felt like a higher version of myself more than I was before. And that's the magenta. See it here? More of a diamond. Now it's up at the top also. And so it's just, wonderfully amazing patterns. I don't think even Max Cade recognized or could have possibly known, except that he was such a mystic. I suppose he did know that this mind mirror would so precisely project the activities of consciousness, the brain being the movie projector, the receiver of what's happening in consciousness, and then projecting that into the mind mirror with such specificity, such precision. And it's exactly what she said. Well, let's see, out of curiosity, what she's doing over here. I see this big, giant delta arousal. That's at 32 minutes. This is the same thing. She's channeling. This is the spaceship. She's alternating between the channeling pattern and evolved mind flares. And so, to say something about the channeling pattern, we can scroll through here and see what that looks like, just to show you. Oksana has shown you in her studies on mediums. This is almost it. So the channeling pattern is less alpha than theta and more delta than theta. So it's like typically a Christmas tree shape. So let me just scroll through here one at a time. Well, there it is right there. That's the channeling pattern, except she has an upturned delta at the bottom. So this is where your sensory awareness, if I might put a story on it, which I think is accurate, your sensory awareness is sort of subjugating or subsuming itself to the essential being, which is so plugged into the field, along with the personal unconscious delta, that this is about inner knowing, inner sensing, feeling, perceiving, not as much with clairvoyance, which is going to be gamma and higher frequencies, or, which clair is it? Clear knowing. Help me out here, Dee.
Clairsentient, feeling, clairvoyant, seeing.
Okay, so clairvoyance is going to be in the alpha. Clairsentience is going to be in theta. I think clairaudience is probably down here in the seeing too. So this is deeper than our usual senses. This is the psychic realm here. And you can only say, wow, she's got to be doing what she's saying she's doing, because these brainwave patterns are so unusual. And gamma comes in every now and then, but right now gamma is down in amplitude, and what's up is this big delta, which precisely describes what she said she was doing. downloading light, radiance, iridescence, and body upgraded to more. So you see, delta is the body. Theta is your subconscious connection to your body. Delta is nothing but feeling, no form, just feeling. Everything she said she was doing right there. So I didn't really have, I could, but I didn't really have time to pull up a couple of other sessions that were really interesting for Dee, although the brainwave patterns were not tremendously different. But just to mention them, in Aria, she had her highest mystical scale score of connecting with ultimate reality. So we have a 1 through 10 scale. And which one was missing? I'll check that up. We have them. That's pretty cool. So they are, the descriptors are the loss of the usual sense of time and space. Yes, check. A sense that the experience cannot be adequately described in words. Check. The experience of pure awareness. Check. The experience of unity with something larger than yourself. Check. A sense of awe or reverence. Yes. The experience of bliss or indefinable peace. Yes. Sensation of being surrounded in light. Yes. Feelings of universal love. Yes. You are convinced that you encountered ultimate reality. Yes. The only one of the 10 she didn't check was the experience that consciousness during this exercise was more real than your normal awareness, which makes perfect sense because her normal awareness is this awareness. But she, at that exercise, went back in time to Jesus who healed her. And then she returned to the present and the realization that everyone she had helped had a relationship with, she had met in light, and then everyone gifted her back the same loving energy. There's no reason I shouldn't just go back here and show you this. And this was Aria. So we're on now the portal dashboard. And we're just going to go into the meditation viewer. If you have a mind mirror and haven't experienced the portal, I hope this will encourage you because it's extraordinary. All right, so she said that all of those people who had gifted her back the same loving energy wanted to then heal her. So it was overwhelming. She felt affected. It affected her breathing. She felt the gamma increases and the energy coming in. And so here, according to my drawing sheets, we can just take a look at this. Get the brainwave sized up. It's about to have a massive blast of delta here in the purple. There it is. Let's see how far out it goes. Well, we can see from here. It's 138 microvolts. That's unbelievable. That's a lot of delta. And then here, a delta and gamma arousal simultaneously.
Wow.
Oh, I'm going the wrong way, sorry. And let's just see how far out this, well, we can see it again. Same thing. 138 blast followed by 92 microvolts. And huge gamma. I mean, this is, nobody hardly has gamma. You might see 1 or 2 microvolts. So we're looking at 10, 12 microvolts. So here's her Jesus and what it feels like to heal other people and to be healed by them, to receive that gift in return. There's another big. So delta and gamma are very intimately, like the torus itself, top and bottom, associated. When you see a big blast of 92 microvolts of delta, then there will probably be some gamma arousal. Or I saw in this last program I got back from yesterday, it can work the other way. Somebody can blast up into gamma and then have a big delta arousal. looks like for D, let's see if we can tease it out real quick. I have to separate the data lines. It looks like for D, the delta is preceding the gamma arousal. So she's plugging into the field. There's that same phenomenon. She's plugging into the field, resonating with the field, and as she does that, her brain waves immensely increase in amplitude. Let's see what happened over here. 29 minutes. What was she doing then? Same thing. She was just surfing, being healed, receiving healing. All right, so you can see that she's got this nice gamma synchrony pattern that's about to surge into massive gamma. And you can tell that it's not artifact because it's so sustained. That is 6, 7 microvolts, 10 microvolts of gamma. That's a lot of gamma. Let's back out so you can see it better. By far taking over the whole pattern. And indeed, this would be a body upgrade, right? And then she had another experience with Jesus, which I really love. As an ascended master, a meditation. I mean, I don't know. How do you perceive Jesus, Dee?
Compassion, love, acceptance, all of that wrapped up in the energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So loving.
Yes. And present.
Very present.
That energy able to, once you reach out to it or connect with it, to come right back and be with you to the point where you feel it.
Yes.
Looking for the other one. You had a experience with your guide, White Cloud. You met a guide named White Cloud.
No, he's one of the originals.
Ah.
Yeah, you're right.
So be patient with me while I flip through pages here. Well, I've lost the second Jesus somehow. I know he's in there somewhere. But this could be really interesting because healing chakras was the name of this meditation. So let's just take a look at that one. Maybe I'll find Jesus again. Tell you a funny story. I went to the beach with my grandsons who had lost their mother, my daughter, and we walked out onto the sand, and I looked in the sand and I saw Jesus's face, and I went, "This is crazy. I see Jesus in the sand."
Wow.
And I have the same relationship with Jesus as a fabulous meditation teacher and guide and friend. And my grandsons and my brother came over and looked at what I saw, and they went, "That, I don't know what you're seeing there, Granny." And I went, "Well, look." And I am not an artist by any means, but I just took a slash at the sand on each side of the head and drew in a chin line, and they went, "That is Jesus." And I have a picture of that. It was so fun. I just loved it. Well, I've lost Jesus, but I can show you the healing chakras anyway. This is a direct function of my back to the dashboard, so I was able to share these patterns with Dee, which is cool because then you can go in there. Oh yeah, so this is almost, the average pattern is almost a 100 hertz evolved mind pattern of universal consciousness. And so in this one, she said, streams of light came down and went into her throat where she had congestion. and that light streamed into her body, and she heard flapping wings in the music, and then went out of body and saw as an eagle mountains of the Sonoma Valley, then the Himalayas, where she met her guide, White Cloud, and said, "This is why you created the House of Light." And we'll ask you to say more about this, Dee, in focus level 27, which in Monroe terminology is a healing space or a place beyond this one, another dimension. And you know that you can exist in that light. And then she said, then she clicked out while she went out of body. So we can look at this composite display. First, we'll just smooth it to separate the data lines, and then zoom to see them better. So there's a ton of gamma in here. In fact, if you look, so gamma is these colored lines. Upper gamma is the red down at the bottom, always the less amplitude. Mid gamma is this kind of fuchsia color here. And then low gamma is this kind of orange color. So left and right brain, to low, to mid, to upper gamma. So at 6 minutes, her gamma was already strong. To have this much gamma to begin with is unusual in itself. But at 6 minutes, something happened. Well, you can see she's already got an evolved mind pattern right here, the circularity, but in the lower frequencies. So let's put it into play. So this is sheets of light coming down into her throat, light streaming into the body. She might be going out of body, not quite. Oh, yep, okay, there she went. So you saw the retraction yourself, right? Now, I mean, I could size this up and it wouldn't look like an out-of-body pattern, but what you're doing is comparing the way it looked before to the de-amplification. Okay. So now here comes the gamma. Which you can feel. People say that they can feel a half of a microvolt of gamma. Sometimes it's a pressure in the forehead, sometimes light on the top of the head, sometimes surrounded by light. Sometimes, you don't even have a body sensation because your awareness is becoming preoccupied by what's happening to you. So here it goes. And then she disappears again. So this is, it's, you know how they say that photons blink off and blink on, and all reality is really this photonic oscillation. This is kind of what she's doing. She's blasting into this gamma, into this higher levels of higher frequencies in the electromagnetic wave spectrum of light, and therefore resonating with that high frequency gamma. And then she's disappearing. And then she goes back and resonates with it again. It's like this pulse, this movement in the field, this toroidal field, this self-generating field of energy, where you're off and then you're on. I can see, let's move this down. I can see that she's disappearing a little bit here. Let's see. She's going to disappear back here. Well, you can just see it. I mean, this is a wonderful, the data lines themselves just show what I said. So, hello, alpha. Goodbye, alpha. Theta increases, gamma increases. So you can see that the data lines are pulsing together in this very synchronized way. All of them pulse on, and then they pulse off, but still together. And then they all pulse on. for a protracted period, and then they pulse off. So this would be a sending, receiving kind of calibration thing. I don't have control of this. Let me see if I can get better control of it. Wait, I forgot I have a touch screen. Oh, it doesn't work. I have to grab it. I'd like to land right here, but that doesn't seem to be happening. Ah, there we go. Nope, won't hold. Ah, now this is not my muscle relaxer. This is just the thing misbehaving.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, okay, so here, if I just hold it, hold the cursor down. So just this, it's a pulse, isn't it? It's a receiving and integrating a, what do you call it, biophotons? So how biophotons work is that we take them in, we increase the power of our biophotons, which is our life energy. Look at this alpha here, the life force, through food, water, um, healing energy, anything that powers us up. And then we move to a point of superluminescence where we fill up with that energy, and then we let it go. We have to let it go. So we're constantly taking in, filling our cup, and then pouring it out. And I swear, I think that's what she's doing here. If I could just hold it, but I can't. Yeah, so a little trip through your brainwave patterns, Dee, which so perfectly replicate, the experiences that you shared. I mean, that totally blew my mind. You're telling me that these aliens said that they're coming in between your subconscious and unconscious mind, and there was that 6 hertz theta just hanging out there in that transpersonal pattern the entire time.
Yeah, a bit of a shock to me too. Not something I've never made a statement like that. So I find it, quite interesting. Really appreciate your templates and all of that you do. I mean, it really puts things together. I've learned so much through the discovery experience, and how all these brain waves can be activated, utilized, and even being able to put myself in, well, alpha quite a bit and help the client to get into that space.
Cool.
Yeah, so they can have an experience. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Will you write a testimonial to that effect and I'll put it up on the website?
Yeah, yes, thank you.
You would be the first non-mind mirror user, although we've had some clients, but still, that's very cool because those landmarks, I mean, that's the key to seeing the brainwave patterns, of course, is that you get an internal landmark verified by the object of measurement. And then you go, oh, in fact, that's how this whole thing got started. This Joe Kamiya back in 1957, the very beginning of EEG, was a professor of, I think, psychology at a leading university, probably California. That's where he was all his life. And he had a student named Richard Bach, not the guy who wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull, apparently, although I suppose it could have been. And he was a graduate student. And he put the EEG on him and said, now you're in alpha. And Bach said, oh, I can remember what that feels like. And to Kamiya's astonishment, he produced alpha.
Yeah.
And, then stopped and said, well, do it again. And he did it again. And Joe Kamiya said, oh, you can. So that was the first landmark. He didn't call it that, but that was
Oh,
the first
great.
one. And
Good. That's a first.
ultimately, he wowed the entire world of EEG, which was just at its very beginning back then, by being able to run a model railroad around the track by producing alpha frequencies, which was the precursor for the entire virtual everything they're doing right now, which I can't begin to drive a
Reality?
car with your brain waves and all the many feats that people are mostly gaming with brainwaves, but that was the beginning there back in 1957. So that's what you're saying there.
Yeah, so I'm glad it's affirming because I notice a reaction from my clients. Yeah, yeah.
So I wonder if I would love, and I suspect everyone else would too, to just hear. We've only got about 10 minutes, but we would love to hear about your experience with ions. Now, ions, you may or everyone may not know, is Institute of Noetic Sciences that has the leading uh, quantum physicist, Dean Radin, at the beginning of the whole new science. And his studies have been, by his own fascination as a musician and a highly intuitive person, on the psychophysiological um, expressions of psi states, psychic states, mediums. So they're studying all that ions. This is the organization Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut, founded when he had a cosmic consciousness experience on his way back to Earth. And these are some serious intellectuals. I mean, these guys, there's no woo-woo in here at all. They're scientific protocols, controls, and everything. And so tell us about how this came up with ions and what you did while you were there.
Okay. So IONS wanted to do a program to see how energy medicine can heal the physical body. So they created a program and invited the local public and whoever wanted to come to be a participant. And they had a group called Emerald Gate behind them that was doing all the funding for this. So they had quite a bit of money. It was going to be a 5-month study. And they invited healers all over the United States to come and stay up at the IONS property, and which is located in Sonoma, well, I guess we call it Marin County. Yeah, Marin County, California. And they would come and they would stay on the property in a retreat center for a week. And so every day was programmed so that it would begin at 8 a.m. and it would go until 3 p.m. And Dean Radin and Garrett Yaunt and several others had created what was called a Faraday cage, and that is electronically shielded. Any kind of electrical frequency could not get in. It was about the size of a bank vault. And so inside there, it was set up with a zero gravity chair in the center. The healer would come in, the healer would be on the right. And then they decided we need someone in there that is going to be functioning as a seer. And so they went on the search for a seer. I got recommended by the founder of the Academy of Intuition Medicine. And they invited us to be tested, number one. And through the testing, they wanted us to be able to see several different things. Energetically read a person's body. Number two was to detect 12 little capsules. They set up a table and an experiment of 12 little capsules, kind of like Nespresso caps. And they had put an item under it, and they wanted someone to detect what was that item underneath that little metal cap. And then there was a couple of other experiments that they put people through. And so I went along, and I really honestly, I had no idea what a seer was. I had kind of looked that up and figure out, and it's like, I have no idea. But since I got recommended, I would just go and I would be one of the participants. And so I did the experiment and I went in the Faraday cage. And one of the first things was to run your psychometry over the little metal caps. And there were two of the scientists, Garrett Young, Yont, and another one right behind me that would be assisting in the project. And I really didn't know who they were. And I thought, oh my gosh, I mean, they're in the field, right? We're in a 10 by 10 field here. And I just wrapped them up in white light and grounded them to the center of the earth so they wouldn't interfere with my field. And they're like, just 3 feet behind me. And then I'm running my hands and I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't even imagine this, like doing a parlor trick, right? I mean, what the heck is going to happen here? So all of a sudden, I have one little cap in front of me and it shoots a flame up outside of it, not visual to anybody else, but visual to me. And it told me it was the everlasting energy, that which is of the original seed. And I identified, like looking at it, I'm writing it down really fast, because I didn't want to, I had a notepad in front of me and I didn't want to forget this, right? And the energy signature color was rose gold. So I knew that that referred to what would be called the Buddha Christ energy. Reiki energy would be very similar. And then I did the reading on one of the people. And then about 10 days, and I thought, oh, I'm so glad I'm done with that. That's just, I don't know about this. And anyway, came home, didn't hear a word. About 10 days later, I was offered, it was a job. I was offered the job. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I kind of thought about that. And I thought, this is a healing experiment. So the Buddha Christ energy showed up. I said, what was under the cap? She goes, it was a Buddha relic. It'd been shipped around the world. It was a part of his bone fragment.
Oh,
Are you getting this? The bone still had energy in it.
and was real.
A high frequency fragment of the bone that traveled the world to be in certain places. I'm like, oh my God. Oh my gosh.
Talk about a
So,
call. You had
right?
to do it then, right?
Well, yeah, because now I'm like, again, one of those significant, you're going into this thing, whatever it is that you're going to do. So we would have about 4 to 5 clients, participants come in. They had a carpal tunnel problem. And the beauty of this, they were hooked up to EEGs. They had heart monitors. They had a little spectra, I can't remember what it was, a little vial of water that would also get charged through a very specific machine. Sorry for not remembering what it was, but they could measure the energy afterwards with the water, like Kyoto's work about the crystalline water
Right, right.
changing with feelings, etc. So what would happen, I'm going to go really fast here, is
No, no, you know what? You don't have to, because people who need to sign off can do so. And
okay.
you're such a wonderful storyteller and you're sharing such fascinating things. I say let's just go until we go. If people have to sign off, they can watch the rest of it by video.
Okay,
We'll
thank you.
send a video out. So
Okay.
take all the pressure off. Say what you want, however long you want.
So in this room, we had grounding rods in the corners, and then they had a little table set up off to the side. I could not see it, but that was picking up all the data that would monitor the heart of the participant and the heart monitor for the healer that was in. So I was given a little just a little recording book, whatever, little book. Just put your thoughts down, right? And I'm just kind of looking at that book, my brain is like calculating exactly what's going to happen in that book, because I'm not going to write butterflies flew by, that's not going to happen. And anyway, the most amazing piece was that when that door closed and nobody knew what I did, they had no idea. I'm already in the field of healing work. I mean, you could easily put me in that other place, but that's not what they wanted me for. They wanted me to do something different. And so when the door closed, that's when the action started. I am just like closed eyes, like a little eyeball in the room, don't even want to scratch with anything making noise. I'm just like moving like I'm part of the furniture back here. The first thing that happened is in the room, the healer would start downloading some energy, and I'd see something, maybe a beautiful gold or a white coming into her or him, and just flowing through their whole body, and that the whole field would start to change. The most astounding part is the guides would show up. And I noticed that they would always come from the north. I'm really into compass. They would always download, same place, filtering in. And so, and then I decided, well, I'm gonna do a timeline. I'm really good at timelines. I did that for every wedding. I know how to do a timeline. I'm gonna just and I'm gonna just write everything minute by minute what was going on. And so what would happen is, the client was apprehensive, the participant, but the healer would start sending the energy into the physical body. The energy, they would never like really actually start at the point where the pain was. They would start with the field of energy, and then they would kind of saturate that energy and then move it through the body. Then it would come down into that carpal tunnel syndrome. So what was going on is they were quieting the field. They were helping the person relax, doing the quiet kind of grounding work, a bit of that going on, and then addressing with the healing energy, and then also bringing in different energy. So they bring in universal consciousness, which is a pearlescent gold. They would bring in that rose gold, which was the Buddha Christ or the Reiki, they could call it that. Or they might just use solid gold. I was always curious afterwards. I because I had everything documented, I would wait till everything was completed. But I definitely would be able to measure who was being healed, how much were they being healed, was it effective or not, or was it not really effective at all? And so the client, of course, would leave. And then the healer, they knew I was there. And they'd be like, what did you see? And I go, well, why don't you talk first? Because I've already got it written down. So, I don't want to influence anything here. So then they would share, and then we would cross reference our notes and find out what was going on. One of the most remarkable things that I saw was we had an internal medicine doctor who was also very gifted as a clairvoyant come in. And this particular person, when he went into his quiet, all of a sudden I would see pillars of light inside of our Faraday cage. And I'm like, what is that? And I'm writing it down. So, and then I watch him and he's working on the person, and he sends in this laser beam into the wrist, and it's fine, like a scalpel, right? I'm like, he's doing psychic surgery. That's
Wow.
what he's doing. So that client left. They had a really effective healing session from him. And then when they leave, I'm like, who's this with me? Because I want to know this person. This person's gifted, right? We've then become friends. It's been about 6 years. But he was very active at the place in Brazil, John of God, and he would go down and organize a lot. And he tapped into the energy that was down there.
Wow.
That's what he was using with the pillars of light. And so he taught me what was going on, because I got to spend a whole week. So I'm observing. And if I tap into that, I'm going to read that energy. I'm going to figure that energy out. I'm going to let that duplicate on myself so I know what this thing feels like. And then, of course, we had opportunities to be together and to really talk out this energy that he was using, which I think is so effective also. And so, and there were many other people, but as I said, everyone had a different approach to their healing, and it did come out to have a very positive outcome. We were there 5 months. I documented 995 pages. From that, it took them almost 2 years. They coded 119 codes that they used for another experiment in other experiments. So these are codes called, something very simple would be color, assign a color to a specific outcome of what happened. Or they read everything I had, and I was very symptomatic in the way that I wrote it so that they would easily get if an energy walked in. Was it a mother being with a baby being? Because those little baby spirits walked in. There were spirit animals that came in. Oh God, we had a couple of times when somebody had ectoplasm leave their body in there, right? It comes out of their orifice. And I
Whoa.
spot it, and it's like we're in a time machine, and this thing is spotting me, and it's coming through time at me at light speed. And I've experienced stuff bad before, and I put a mirror on me because bad stuff hates to see itself. And right when it's like out in front of me, boom, I just pull that mirror on me. It just shattered in the space. We're talking energetic, I mean, all I know is, man, I could just see that stuff come out, and it was so weird. I documented that. So they have that. They got a lot of good work out of the experiment. They did it again. They hired myself and 5 other people. So we had 6 people on a panel, which was really cool. And we did that in 2019. And again, it was great because 6 people had different ways of seeing.
Mm.
And, the experiment turned out good. And every once in a while, when you're doing an experiment, you're going to see good things, you're going to see not so good things. A lot of patterns are going to come out. There's going to be quite a bit of information about why a person would even have a problem. It was a great experience.
Did you find that a lot of, if not most or all, of people's physical issues had a source in their fields, past life or
Oh, yeah.
concepts?
Yeah.
Is
Oh,
that usually what it is?
yeah. Well, we can look back in the genetic coding through the cells or the hereditary banks or the karmic bank or the universal bank, how they're living their life. And it's possible to detect where's the origin of the problem. Or are we talking, and that would be a pattern. A pattern routes through the body, kind of like in through the meridians into organs. And in order, you get it in the brain first, and then it's going to show up in the genetic tapes, and then it's going to flow through the physical body. And then it's going to have a message. What's the pattern? I usually always verify what the pattern is for the person. Does it resonate with you? Once I find that pattern, I really want to put a timeline out there so I can find out, well, how far back did it go? So then I'm looking for clearing that pattern. But here's where Monroe came in really good for me. Monroe, when you get up to 27, you get to go to other fields like lifelines, okay? So I go to lifelines, which is a field where souls may get stuck in. And I'll just show up there. And that soul is usually pretty present where it got stuck in the pattern. Let's say I'm not good enough, okay? Little kid never got recognized. It's going to show me them at 4 years old. They have a guide with them. And then I'll begin talking to them and ask them if it's time now to bring that aspect into present time. Are they ready? Because their guide's been trying to help them, but they need an intermediator there. So then from that place, and I find it fascinating, all the Monroe stuff, right? Because I'm just double checking everything now. So I'll find that little aspect, and then I'll create a light, like a little tunnel light, which will come up anyway for us, right? Whatever's
Mhm.
going to be appropriate for that one. And then I'll let them go up to the healing center. And many times when they're there, they're going to meet with light beings, and they're going to have a healing for that specific part of themselves. Sometimes they'll walk around, and for me, there's a lake up there in 27. And I've seen some of those souls go by the lake and meet up with Jesus there, and they just sit
Mm.
together. And then when that is all completed, I know that's going to merge back in. We're going to merge back into the higher chakras, and we're going to download and bring that information into present time. Then we have the wholeness here, but that all needs to get integrated in the physical body through the organs, through the systems, down to every cell. We're going to run some pretty high, maybe Kundalini energy, and bathe the brain now for the new pattern, letting that settle back in, and then bring in their original essence energy, that higher frequency of their life force energy, and then put a protection like gold around them. Then that's complete. So that's how I use that now.
Far out. And this might be a place for me to say how much I appreciated being in the Lifeline program with you. And I'll just say a little bit about what happened. So, in Lifeline, as we both mentioned, people are asked to listen in their check units, these little bitty beds, single beds with a blackout curtain, and you listen on headphones to these beat frequencies that Robert Monroe designed through originally his out of body travels, coming back and knowing where that was all happening. And he created these audio soundscapes, really, that you're listening to with typically a purpose. And the main purpose, although by no means the entire scope of the program, was to move up to you create like a literally a landmark. For example, mine was a tattoo of my departed daughter had on her back. It was a Buddha sitting in front of a open splay of lotus leaves. And so what we're asked to do is to go to focus level 10, which is basically meditation, awakened mind state, with the use of that visual, if you can create a visual. And then focus level 12, you're maybe Bonnie's on, maybe you, Dee, can correct me because I don't remember exact labels, but I think 12 is the time of is moving to no time. 15 is something else. 21 is something else. But people's souls can get stuck after 21 if they have, like Dee said, a part of them that has not reintegrated with the wholeness. So say you die and you believe that there's nothing but you get buried under a tree. So you can get stuck on 21 or 22 and in a place where there's only you and a tree and you're sitting there for eons, until somebody comes along and during this program, puts their mind on a search for you. And if you have some resonance with that soul, which I think is the driving connector, you connect with that person and you tell them, would you like to go into the light? And so you usher them on up to focus level 27, which is, I think 21 is the bridge. And
Yeah,
then 27 is where the healing center and the park are.
yeah.
And people perceive it in lots of different ways, but it is a place of light. And when people get there, when you help people get there, guides show up and will take them into the light. And you can feel it. You can feel the change. And, you might think, oh, this is such woo-woo stuff. But the truth is that the program encourages you to ask them their name and how they died and where they lived and to get details about them so that after you take them into the light and after the exercise, you go back down into the meeting room and everybody's sitting there with their phones Googling the person's name. And by God, it's true.
Yeah.
Those people died of that name, those circumstances, that place. And it happened over and over again. And I had some extraordinary experiences, and Dee had some extraordinary experiences. And soon we got a line of sight on each other and started talking. And that's when I learned about his fabulous background that she's been sharing with us. And then toward my big story is that toward the end of the week, we had an exercise where four of us were grouped together and each asked to write a departed person's name on a piece of paper and put it in the center of the circle. And then someone would draw, and the group would draw your piece of paper. I actually saw things that the guy validated. It was a bizarre situation where it was like a jazz performer who had become very unhappy in his life and due to an injury to his hands, and it all proved to be true. But Dee gave me the most amazingly wonderful and uh, it almost moved me to the point of acceptance about my daughter's death. And she died last year from congestive heart failure at age 50. And interestingly, in discovery programs between her passing and the time I met Dee in February, three different people had given me information about my daughter. And to all three of them, she had showed up as a 2-year-old, which I think refers to the fact that that's when her dad and I separated, that she was going back to that age to get what she lost at that age. But Dee saw her in a way that was far more elaborate and verifiable. And so she said that Jody had showed up and as a 2-year-old, but that she stood aside from that 2-year-old body and pointed to it and says, "I was little when I died, but not that little." And in fact, she was 4 feet 11 inches tall. So she indeed had been little. And she said, and when I left, she said, I felt this terrible, terrible sadness, but it wasn't in me, it was from the people who were with me. And in fact, the whole family had come to her aunt's house. Her aunt and her Jody's sister were also nurses, so a lot of the family had come, and we were all staying at her aunt's house, and we were definitely sad. I kept thinking till the last moment that she was going to pull through, or even when she died, she was such a fighter. I expected her to pop back and say, "Just kidding," you know. I was the only one who didn't really seem to realize what was going on, but the sadness was definitely there. But she said that as soon as she moved past the sadness, she felt so much love, and that she had never expected that there would be so much love there, and that she was just living in love, and she was so happy. And Dee told me a lot. Oh, one other thing she told me, she said that Jody was very talkative, and Jody was an absolute comedian, nonstop talker, had people in hysterical laughter the whole time. She really totally missed her calling. She ended up as a teacher, but she should have been a comedian. And she said that she was very talkative and very playful, and she kept saying as a 2-year-old, I have so many friends now. I have a mommy and a daddy and a sister and a brother, and I have lots of friends, and I love to go to the beach. Do you want to go to the beach with me? I can bring my friends and we can all go to the beach together and stuff like that. And it was just totally Jody. In fact, she had asked that I spread her ashes at the Pensacola beach, and that's what I did. So there were so many validations in it, and it was such a tremendous help to me. And of course, all of us listening today realize the same thing, is that the service that you provide to people, whether it's helping them cross over, or whether it's giving comfort to the families, or whether it's healing someone, even whether it's only just bringing people to the realization of multiple realities, multiple dimensions of reality, and that in those other dimensions, that the dominant frequency is love, and that everything is just the way it's supposed to be, and that if you pull yourself back into that field of love, that things tend to spontaneously resolve and integrate and heal, and that you give that to people. And what a blessing that your whole life you were looking for love in all the right places. And
Yeah.
that's what you found, and now are sharing with other people. And that's really all it comes down to, isn't it?
Yeah. Thank you very much. And thank you for everyone that's here also. I really appreciate having an opportunity to bring it all, kind of full circle and to share. And I love, like really hearing about other people and the experiences. And I'm deeply appreciative about that we got to meet. I really appreciate our friendship.
Me too. Me too. And now your friendship with all of these lovely people. I've been watching them smile along with you and
Good.
exult with you. And if anybody wants to say anything before we close, please feel free to unmute and say whatever.
Well,
Thank
I'm
you.
going to unmute.
Hi.
So, Dee and I have a unique relationship, and I can tell you that she has brought a lot of clarity for me and a lot of validation for me, and I have loved her friendship. And it's a long story, so I'm not even going to go into how it is we've met, but she is wonderful in every way. Every way. And she had a wonderful experience while she was at Monroe. And when you described helping souls who are stuck, she helped a soul that was so special to me. And it was a transition that happened. I think she had already left for that trip for Monroe. I think you were on the plane that day going to Monroe when this situation happened unexpectedly. She was so helpful to me with the experience she had at Monroe helping other souls. And she helped a beautiful soul for me. So I had to pipe up. I couldn't not say something about how wonderful she is.
I'm so glad you did.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing all the stories and all the information. That was just amazing. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Sydney. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, well, we'll leave it at this and just say thank you so incredibly much. I think that this has been, if not the best, one of the 5 best programs that we've ever had in the many years we've done it. You've just been so authentic and so articulate, and you're just such a born, gifted storyteller. Probably just ought to sit in a Word program with the microphone on and just get it all on paper and publish a book.
Great idea. Great idea.
Yeah, it's just been heartwarming and soul lifting, and we can't thank you enough. Thank you, Dee, for
Thank
everything.
you. Thank you, everyone.